Hello, Giles Terera. Hello, everybody. It's wonderful to see you. I have been thinking about when we first premiered Hamilton in London and the year it took us to find our incredible original company. I was lucky enough to be at Giles's audition and Rachel's audition. I was sick with an inner ear infection from rehearsing Mary Poppins Returns. And so I said, I'm not going into work, but I did sneak over to auditions. And I remember seeing Giles sing Wait for It as if I was hearing it for the first time. And that's how I felt with this extraordinary company. We didn't know if the show would work in the UK, in the shadow of Buckingham Palace, in the Royal Victoria Palace, as we take the piss out of the monarchy. But to approach it with a new company and to watch their insights, Giles's incredible journal and incredible story took me back there, took me back to those wonderful, heady times when we all started putting it together from scratch all over again. And this extraordinary company found their way in. So I'm sending you all love and congratulations on this remarkable achievement. And sending you love, Giles. Till the next one.
Welcome to this Fane Online event, which we will be streaming on demand for the next 7 days until July the 8th. My name is Mistajam. We are here at the Victoria Palace Theatre to discuss this thing right here. One of the best books that I've read in the last decade. And I'm not just saying that because the person behind it is sitting with me right now. Multi-award winning actor, musician, a true polymath, author, playwright, one of the most talented people I have the pleasure of knowing, Mr. Giles Terera. How are
you? Oh, listen, thank you for that.
Sorry, Mr. Giles Terera, MBE. How are you, sir?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good, brother. Good to see you.
We've got to put some respect on your name.
Listen, thank you, Pete. Pete, it's brilliant to be here with you. We've known each other how long?
20 years this year.
20 years.
Yes.
We should say that we met
very young
when you were when you were an actor, right? That's how we met.
Yes, that's how we met. I was in a former life. I was an actor, and we were in the same production together. And I remember walking on set for the very first day of our rehearsals because we were rehearsing in the theatre, and there was this guy that was there with his guitar, who had an amazing voice, who was a fantastic dancer, who knew everybody's parts, and that was you. And I remember seeing you going, oh, that's the standard. Maybe I'm out of my depth.
Oh, no. You smashed it. That was fun. We had fun on that gig.
We did.
So it's brilliant that you agreed to do this, man.
Well, thank you for asking me. Thank you for asking me. And we are here at the Victoria Palace Theatre, the home of Hamilton.
Yeah. It's mad to be here because I've been here once since I finished in the show. I came to see the end of the second year. So I've only really been in here once. So it's kind of mad to be in here. It's beautiful.
I wish we could show a little bit more, but we're not allowed to show the stage. But it is in front of us right now. So if at any given point in time you see us both going, ooh.
Yeah. You know what it looks like.
Yeah. We're here to talk about this. The book came out today.
Yeah.
Hamilton and Me, an Actor's Journal. It's an amazing read. It really, really is. I read it and it's got the real emotional depth and unflinching honesty of an autobiography, but it's just got the clarity of a textbook. When you were deciding to actually put the book together from your journal, what was the motivation to actually get it published?
Okay, so I didn't write it to be published. Right. That's the first thing. I wrote it like in rehearsals because I wanted to know, one, where I was supposed to be standing and moving and what I was supposed to be doing and who the character was. And that's kind of what I do. I keep like a work journal, especially with something which is like as huge as Hamilton, and the role, Aaron Burr, massive. So it was very necessary that I kind of keep some kind of journal about what the work was. And then also, I knew that it would probably be very intense and very quick as an experience, like rehearsals and stuff. So I was like, okay, I want to make sure that I can sort of enjoy it and sort of be present with it. as opposed to thinking about all the million things you need to do and what we're doing tomorrow and what's that song and stuff. So I wanted to give myself like a moment every day where I actually was just sort of present with what I was doing. And that was it. And then I thought, well, maybe, you know, in 10 years' time or something, it might be interesting to look at. But that was it. That was as far as my ambitions of the thing went. And then lockdown came along. And actually, I was thinking about another book. I was thinking about another, a book about acting for like young actors, young students and stuff. And as part of it, I kind of thought, oh, maybe I could use a bit of the Hamilton experience, like one of the chapters or something. Maybe look at one of the songs and acting through songs or something. So I dug out, last year, the journal. I had to find it. And I began looking for which bit I was going to use or what I might use. And I was like, actually, this is kind of really interesting. Having been stepped away from it for, at that point, 1.5 years, 2 years, I think. I was like, oh wow, yeah, I remember that day, and I remember that moment, and I remember that feeling, and I remember when we all did that, and actually found myself reading it really, really quickly. I was like, this is kind of cool. This is the kind of thing that I'd like to have seen when I was starting out. Yeah. I found it really interesting. So I spoke to my agent about it, my literary agent, and she said, oh, this is good. You know, forget the other book. Do this one, because it's kind of all in there. Which I thought, and I was actually, yeah, that actually it is, in terms of starting from auditioning for the part, and then all the research. There was a massive gap from when I auditioned, from when I first auditioned, and then when I met them for the final audition, the Americans, the creative team. It was like 6 months. Wow. So I had a lot of time to research and really look into what this subject matter was. I didn't know anything really about the sort of the American Revolution, and I didn't really know that much about the Founding Fathers. I certainly didn't know anything about Aaron Burr. So I had to do a lot of research, and I was just fascinated by it all. So then there's all of that, and then we finally start rehearsals, and then it ramps up a gear, and then it's like even more intense because you're playing this part who comes on first thing from that wing right there. The wings are the sides of the stage. Comes on and stands right there in complete silence. There's no overture, there's no nothing. The house lights go down, this character walks out and starts speaking, and then is pretty much on stage for the duration of the show. So there's a lot to kind of work out and stuff. So then it steps up another gear when you then move into the theatre and start the technical rehearsals and start the previews and stuff. So it covers a kind of lot of ground, really. So I thought, oh well, if that could be useful to someone else, whether you like want to be in the theatre, or whether you're starting out in the theatre, or whether you're just interested in theatre, and it might sort of enrich your experience of going to the theatre, then I was like, actually, well, yeah, maybe that's something that would be. Then I was like, is it going to be because I didn't write it to be published? When I was reading, I was like, oh yeah, I remember that. I was like, will this mean anything to someone who wasn't in that room and in that experience? Or is it, you know, I'm sure to other people who are in our cast, in that experience, I showed it to a couple of our cast members. I was like, does this really, does it read outside of our experience? And they said, yeah, no, it does. So then I showed it to Lin, and said the same thing, and I thought, well, depending on what he says, then I'll like kind of get on board with it. And he was really cool about it. He read it really quickly. He read it in one go and was really emotional about it when he responded. So okay, cool, the boss is happy. So
if he's happy, then you know.
And if he's happy, then yeah. So then we just started having inquiries about how to put it out. But the hope is that it's of use to people. You know, it will either sort of encourage young actors, young artists, or it will sort of enrich your theatre experience, or kind of ultimately now I can look at it and go, it's actually about sort of meeting your challenges, really.
I was going to actually have to challenge you on that, because I think that there's a real universality to this book that means that it doesn't really matter. You don't have to be from the theatre or a performer to be able to take something from the book, because on one level, it's you telling your story as eloquently as you possibly can through using those snapshots of time as you're going through them, but it's also you're showing how many plates you're spinning at any one given moment in time.
Yeah.
And how you then deal with if one falls, you know, even to push that metaphor even further, when you are on stage spinning around on the turntable that was on the stage, you know that if you step here and step there, then everything can continue. But if you move slightly to the right, the whole thing will fall down and you'll end up in a bit of a heap. But that is what you're doing, is the whole process was in the book. So
yeah,
it feels like it's a lot of transferable skills.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. You know, you're absolutely right. Because I spent all the rehearsals going. Now there's 2 turntables, right? Is it 2? Yeah, there's 2. There's the outer one, and then there's the sort of inside one, and sometimes they're spinning at different times. So I was like, I'm gonna knock someone out. Because I'm not a dancer. We did a show together. You know, I'm not a dancer. I can kind of do my thing, but I'm not like a precision dancer like some of these people. The majority of people I was on stage with are like the best dancers in the country, and I only say that in terms of like the discipline that you need to have. If your arm is supposed to be there, it's there. If your leg is supposed to be there, it's there. If you're supposed to turn your head there, it's there. The precision, whereas I don't really have that. I think to me that's the difference between like somebody who can dance and a dancer. Yeah. Is that I'm like, oh, did I do that last time? I don't know what I did this time. It's sort of vague. Whereas, so I was like, in Hamilton, you can't do that. You can't do that because someone is going to get hurt. And that was sort of drummed into us really, really early on in rehearsals. And all that means is that you're working together. It's about what you're doing as Aaron Burr, yes, but what you're doing impacts on what your colleague next to you is doing and your colleague next to you is doing. So the idea of like working together, being part of a team, being part of a group, I think is definitely transferable. That I think is something which people can relate to no matter what you do.
100%.
Yeah.
Another thing that I think that really struck me was right at the start of the book of you talking around how you came to learn of Hamilton to begin with.
Yeah.
Came to learn of the musical, came to learn of the play, and it was a friend of yours that was trying to tell you that you need to pay attention to this thing.
Yeah.
Didn't go into too much detail in the book, but I wanted to take you back to that moment.
Because my agent told me about it, that this was happening and there'd be auditions and stuff. And then a friend of mine who was in New York at the time, an actress I'd worked with here, she's now living in New York, she texted me to say, and it was quite late, so it would have been early there, I guess, or whichever way around. But it was, I remember it was late here, and it was like, I've seen this amazing show, and you've got to be in it. And I'd heard of Hamilton, so I guess they're on Broadway. In New York, the show was on Broadway by now, but it was still early on in its run. And I came to Hamilton very, very late. I'd heard of it. I hadn't heard the show, but I'd heard of it. So I was like, okay, well, Hamilton. And I didn't really think too much about it when my friend texted me. And then when my agent called me about it, he said, okay, Hamilton. And I wasn't really in a hurry I didn't think I was in a hurry to do another musical show at that point. So I said, okay, Hamilton. And at that point, I knew that it was like rap, hip hop. But I still didn't know too much about it. So then I listened to it. And once I listened to it, it struck me like immediately that this was very, very special. And then within that, there's just something about the character and specifically like what people say about him and how he's described and stuff. And there was just something about that really kind of struck me. So I was like, okay, I don't know what this is, but I've got something's happening here. So then once I knew that I really wanted to explore who this person was, I kind of jumped into it and listened to the cast recording round the clock and fell in love with all of it. But yeah, there were a few moments about the time when I first heard about the show, which were, and I bumped into a friend of mine as well when I got the I went and got the cast recording because I knew that I'd have to prepare for it. I bumped into a friend of mine in town. I was living in town at the time. And she mentioned it as well. She mentioned the show. So there was a couple of moments where I was like, okay, there's something sort of, I don't want to say larger happening, but there was definitely something that I can now look back.
It was definitely, because it feels to me as though Hamilton found you rather than you found it.
Yeah, definitely. I would definitely say
Too many people around you saying, hey, have you heard this?
Yeah.
Have you seen this? This is something.
Yeah, I would, that's how I would put it. It definitely found me, and I'm glad it did.
So am I, being someone that was lucky enough to come and watch that early performance of all of you guys, of the principal cast.
Yeah.
My wife got tickets. I don't know how she did, but thank you very much to my wife for doing it. But I want to actually take you back to before this book starts. So, you know, as I say, it feels like there's a part of this that is autobiographical. There's a part of it that is definitely kind of textbook. But for you, where did the kind of the seeds, where were they sown for you as a performer?
As in right from the beginning?
Right from the beginning.
Probably now I can look back and think my mum was like an amazing singer. Not like someone who would get up at weddings and sing or whatever, but just around the house. You know, our mums don't have time to be, our mums are cooking and plaiting the girls' hair and washing and doing the gardening and ironing and going to work and doing all of that. And so she'd always be singing around the house, always. The radio was always on, and she'd always be singing. Like, kind of thing like in another world, in another time. She had a great ear. She could hold a great tune, and she knew like every song that came on the radio. Wow. She loves listening to Tony Blackburn back in the day, who would be like hits from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and into the 90s and stuff. And she knew, if she didn't know the lyrics, she knew the melody of like everything. And as I got older and then got into music, I'm sure you know this, like you can kind of hear people around you and go, oh yeah, you've got a flair for it, or an ear for it. My mum was like that. So she, now I can go, actually there was a lot of, and she was a brilliant storyteller, very, very funny. So now I can go, oh, I didn't think that at the time when I was a kid, but now I can look back and go, actually, that's kind of where it comes from. I always kind of go, no one in my family was a performer, no one was in the theatre, no one was an artist, but actually my family is full of amazing storytellers, amazing storytellers, especially on my mum's side, which is Barbados. Very, very funny, great storytellers. And I think now I can appreciate that more. But when I was a kid, it was just something I enjoyed doing. I enjoyed, you know, doing silly voices and telling stories and doing impressions of people and trying to make people laugh and getting told off in class because I was talking all the time. And I was that guy, you know. Giles needs to just.
Was that your school reports?
Totally, all the time.
He would excel if only
he would
focused.
Excel if he was, you know, he's bright, but he just needs to but I think that's cool. Like now I'm like, well, that was just my imaginative whatever coming through. But didn't you find that it's like you're sort of doing it before you know what it means? Or I didn't have anyone to sort of say, oh, you should be an actor, or it was just something I did for fun and kind of found my way into. But then now I can look back and go, oh, actually, I can see where it comes from within my.
But what was it within you that felt, do you know what, I actually have something? I feel like I want to try and do something that then took you to drama school, that took you to the stage, that took you to where you are now.
Do you know what? I just went along with my friends. I did, because I didn't know about theatre, and I didn't know. My mum, she loved the theatre, so her favourite was like The Sound of Music. So whenever The Sound of Music was on, or The Wizard of Oz and stuff. But she'd have to work, so she didn't take us to the theatre. We went to the movies occasionally on the Saturday morning, a bit matinee or whatever, go see The Jungle Book or something, but or The Care Bears, but which I remember seeing.
Great movie.
Or we also saw. I remember we went to see James Bond once. But anyway, that was it. And she would take us to the pantomime. We went to the pantomime.
Okay.
Everyone goes to the pantomime. So I didn't know about like acting, and I didn't know what that was, or that you could do it as a profession. That's it, you could do with your life. So when I came to leave school, did very badly at school because I was more interested in music, and I got into sort of songwriting and playing in bands and stuff. So then my friends were going to do a performing arts course at the college locally, and I was like, okay, well, I went and did that. And then I didn't know you could go to drama school. I didn't know that existed. I didn't know you then left and got an agent. I had no idea, no frame of reference. But then once I found out about drama school, I was like, oh, this is what I've always been doing.
Yeah.
This is, oh, right, okay. So it's not just something which is sort of over there, which you do to make everyone else in class laugh. It's actually something you can apply yourself to and do, and that's what I want to do.
It's a career.
That's a career. But actually, I've never really thought of it as like a career. I always do like what I enjoy. I've never,
Vocation.
yeah, I've never felt, I don't know what you were like, but I've never felt like I'm going to be here at this point, and then I'm going to achieve this at that point, and that point, and that. I've always gone, I really enjoy this particular thing, and that's what I'm going to do now. And that's kind of what it was with Hamilton, of like, what is this show, and what is this music, and what are these songs, and what is this character, and I want to know more about that, and I want to spend more time doing that. So I kind of just fell into acting. People always say that, but once I
people always say that, but they don't actually prove that they've fallen into it by the way that you just have with your explanation.
Yeah.
Oh, I fell into it. My auntie took me in.
Yeah.
She was already a famous actress. That's
right.
not your story.
No, not at all. But once I knew that it was what I could do and what I felt really passionate about, then I was completely committed to it. And I think I'm just curious. I'm a curious person. I'm fascinated by people and why we do shit, and why we do the things that we do, and how we work, and how complicated we are. And to me, that's what's really interesting about acting, is going, why is that person doing that? Why does Bird, what is he after when he comes out? What does he want? And what is it about? He has to end the evening with pointing a gun, a pistol, and shooting someone and killing them. I'm like, well, how do you get to that point? This is an intelligent, smart, personable, erudite person. This is a sane person. How do you get to that point? And I'm fascinated by that. I'm fascinated by the character of Hamilton. And
I think that really comes through in the book. And the reason why I was asking you is because when I read the book, the thing that keeps on coming through to me, and having seen you perform, over the years, the honesty that you bring to the performance, the depth that you bring to the performance, you let people behind the curtain with this book. That curiosity that you've always had, it's not just out of thin air. You will take that curiosity and then research and spend time and ask questions and go to the nth degree to try and find what the honesty of that moment is, and you then bring that to the stage. That's a special thing.
Yeah, but I think that's what we do. I mean, if you're at a gig and you're in front of 10,000 people at the O2 or something, you know that if you're really going to get that group of people with you, you can kind of go this way, you can do this, you can go that way, but actually, you know whether if you completely attack that moment with like as much honesty as you can in terms of why am I here and what am I doing, and then it'll lift off. And I think it's the same with acting. I'm a really curious person. I'm fascinated by people and people's behaviour. I knew that I didn't know a lot about the subject matter, so I needed to know a lot about the subject matter. I knew that, and I think most importantly, when I listened to this music and this cast recording, this show, and then when I saw it, but first of all, when I listened to it, I was like, whoever's written this has done it from such a place of like brutal honesty emotionally about what they're trying to achieve and what they're trying to do. And I don't think I could express it more than that, but I was like, I need to reflect that, because whoever's put this together has really gone there. And so that's the least. I can't do any less than that. So I think those things. It was a lot. I mean, this is like, you know, I know that like I remember hearing Leslie Odom Jr., who originated the role. He expressed that like we don't often get roles like this. You don't see roles for black men, and that can be said of black women as well, in this way. And there was something about the richness of the character which is very apparent to me. So I was like, well, it's, you know, I can't do any less than really, really commit to it. And also, I felt that there was something about the part when I first, and the piece when I first read it, I was like, actually, this is probably going to be something which draws on everything that I've ever learned and felt up until now. And at that point, I've been acting for just under 20 years, I guess. So I was like, oh no, this piece, it's a piece of musical theatre, but all the Shakespeare plays I've done, this is going to draw on all of that. All the singing I've done, all the theatre I've done, all the art that I've seen, all the music that I've heard, all the dance that I've watched. I'm going to be able to use all of it in this one character, in this one piece. So to me, I was like, yeah, great. Let's go for it.
And not only, I think, the stuff that you're able to do professionally, but also the stuff that you grew up around. You know, the fact that you are from a migrant family, the fact that you have that experience means that you're coming to this piece with this richness that cannot be bought.
Yeah. I remember my mum talking about, she came to England from Barbados in 1966, which is when Barbados got its independence. So I was sort of aware of this idea of colonialism, you know, and you catch up with that as you kind of get older. And then my father was from Zimbabwe, and I knew that he was one of 11, and 4 of his brothers died in the War of Independence with what was Rhodesia and Britain. So I saw that definitely in this piece of like, this is my country. This is from their perspective. This is from the founding brothers' perspective, and sisters and mothers' perspective. Let's park the outer historical context of what the birth of that nation is. But from their perspective, they're saying, this is my country, this is where I was born, this is what I'm prepared to live and die for. And I totally understood that from my own experience. So in a way, there was an opportunity to sort of honor that. And also it was very available. I think it was very available to me. Even though Burr sort of, in this version, has less of it than the Sons of Liberty, they're the ones going, let's go. And he's the ones going, hang on, just chill. But actually, in the war, he had an incredible war career, and he was celebrated and all of that. So yeah, I think there was a lot that was available to me to try and mine this story and try and reach some kind of truth with it.
At which point during the process were you aware of the cultural phenomenon that Hamilton, I think, became very, very early in this country, in your run?
Yeah. Well, when I knew I was auditioning and I started to sort of look at it online and listen to the music, I think the original company had just gone to the White House. so I was like, okay,
no pressure.
Yeah. This is insane, and you've got cutaways to President Obama and Michelle Obama, and so then I was very aware that this is a huge cultural kind of reverberating thing. But that said, now I'm saying that it's not like Game of Thrones, which is a sort of, it's a kind of detached thing. This was what I was seeing as much as anything was the casting choices and the people who were telling the storytellers were telling the story and the use of music and then what that means and where that music came from and where rap and hip hop comes from originally anyway. And I totally can connect to that. You know, going back before, like, you know, George Clinton, Parliament Funkadelic, James Brown, you can go Cab Calloway, you go all the way back, it's all one thing. Yeah. So for me, I was like, that's what I really connect to. I've never been hugely kind of interested in sort of pop phenomenon just for its own sake, if it doesn't mean something. And then here, by the time it reached here, I remember, I tell you exactly what we had. I got cast very early, and then I think I was cast in like December, and then we didn't start rehearsals till September. Huge amount of time. And I remember there was one point where I was coming through Hyde Park and looking down Park Lane, and there were like, I don't know, 5 or 6 buses, and like 4 of them had Hamilton on the side of them. When the marketing thing started to ramp up, and it was way in advance. There was one point where everywhere you saw was just Hamilton on the tubes, on the buses, on the posters and things. And then I started to shit myself. I was like, this is actually happening. And at that point, you can't tell anyone about it. You've been cast and you've got the role, but you can't speak about it. And so that was me having to check myself, going, switch that off. Yeah. Don't worry about that. Worry about what you know, which is all the work you've been doing and the character, the person. Just chill out. So it's a good question, because it was like balancing the kind of phenomena with the sort of immediate work. It was always sort of having to go, even all the way through rehearsals as well, because then it's real, and then you're bumping into people on the way to or from rehearsals, and like, all right, you're going to be Hamilton, and how's it going? And press stuff starts to happen.
As soon as people know that you're in there, did you get the phone calls for tickets?
I did. From people that I have not spoken to for years. Going, hey, how's it going? Yeah.
Yep. You know what this is for.
No, this is for. But in a way, I was like, do you know what? Again, I was like, do you know what, Giles? Chill out. Yes, it's cool. People are. That's fine. What I found really cool was that actually the people who are closest to me didn't. They were like, you just do your thing and kind of get on with it. But you know, it was Hamilton's a hot ticket, and people want to go and see the show. So I was like, it's fine. You know, people want tickets. You can, you know, only do what you can do. But then when we then start to perform, knowing that people have really anticipated this, often we'd go outside after the show, and people would be queuing up, and you'd speak to them, and they'd say, you know, I got my tickets 8 months ago. I've been waiting a year for this. And that element of the pop culture phenomenon thing, I could connect with, because I was like, it means something to people. Yeah. It really does. And you are, there was a point in this show where you can't quite see it from here, but from the wing up until the surround, the steps basically that lead you up to the thing. And sometimes in previews, I would walk up those steps, and you could just see a bit of the circle, right? Just before the show was about to start. And there's a little sort of black cloth, and you could just have a little eye hole you can see. And I would look and just clock someone that I was like, okay, right, just think about that person is coming to see this show. They're coming to hear this story. It means everything to them. This is the one time they're going to get to hear it. People came 15, 16 times, but this is now. The person is in the room now. Tommy, our director, was always about that. Someone's getting an experience right now. It's not going to be the same as yesterday or tomorrow. And that responsibility, you go, okay, well, how do I use that to make me not run out of the building and run away? Because you have to use it, and you're okay, right, this is someone's experience. This is someone's experience, and they're going to get this one chance to hear this story. So just, you know, so in that sense, that is the kind of the phenomenon of it. But actually, you then have to go, well, how do you use it as opposed to it just being this big kind of snowballing thing that's coming after you. Yeah, it was a privilege to tell that story.
What's up, my people? This is Jason Pennycook here, Lafayette Jefferson from the original London cast of Hamilton. I just want to say that Giles is a wonderful human being. He's the best bear I've ever worked with, and he's... What's that? I don't have to say nice things about Giles anymore because he's called off the hitmen. I just have to talk about wonderful memories from Hamilton. Oh, that's a relief. There are lots of wonderful memories I could say about Hamilton, far too many to mention. From being on stage when Prince Harry came up and sang a line from You'll Be Back at the charity concert. From being in the whole rehearsal process with the Americans and seeing how they work, which is a beautiful work ethic that I shall carry on in all of my jobs after Hamilton. From being in my audition when I did my own personal rap about the similarities between my mother and Hamilton being from the same place, Nevis in the West Indies. And Tommy, the director, turned around and said to me, "Thank you for trusting me with your story," which I thought was a beautiful thing to say. From meeting all of the wonderful cast members and creating this beautiful story about who lives, who dies, who tells your story. From meeting all the adoring fans and the stars that came to watch the show and gave us such wonderful energy whilst we were on stage, and the same energy when we came off stage and met them at the stage door. From crazy moments like scaring Taryn, all of those beautiful moments have a special place in my heart. And lastly, this moment here was our first preview. And before our first preview, we got on stage and we circled up, as we call it, and we had this wonderful circle. And I'm sure you can even see the energy in this room and the thoughts of all the people in that circle. It was a beautiful moment that I shall carry with me for the rest of my life. Hamilton and Me is Giles's account of his rehearsal process from day one right up until the first performance. And you should definitely buy the book, if nothing else, so that he doesn't put another contract out on my life. No, but all seriousness, Giles is a wonderful human being to work with, as were the rest of the cast and the creative team, and all that had anything to do with Hamilton. It was a privilege to work on, and I wish you all the best. Lots of love from the Pennycook.
Hi Giles, and hi readers of Hamilton and Me. A memory that I have of the original London cast of Hamilton, for me, is sitting in the rehearsal room, usually on my own, watching everybody do their thing. I remember the first time I ever saw the lineup in Alexander Hamilton, the opening number, you know, the bit where everybody steps forward and sings "Take Your Time," and feeling quite overwhelmed by the fact that, wow, I'm in Hamilton, and seeing the rest of my cast standing there singing. For me, it felt like. But yeah, congratulations on writing the book, and I can't wait to read it.
I'll tell you what, as well, for me, you know, being someone who acted in the past, being able to kind of come and see a piece before I actually was able to be in this building watching it, knowing that it's a predominantly black and minority ethnic cast, knowing that it's written by a Puerto Rican, knowing that it's tackling a subject that has always been made to feel like it isn't our history or it doesn't touch us at all.
Yeah.
It felt like a real cultural shift.
Yeah.
And I think that when you look at what's happened with society post Hamilton being as big as it has been over here and over in America, it feels like it started a few conversations.
Yeah, it did. I mean, even if it could be, you know, argued as cynically as saying this is the biggest thing on the planet right now, and therefore everyone goes, we need to do stuff like that. Even if it's just that, I think that is a positive thing, because it means that people, producers and stuff, are going, okay, we're going to put this new show. Okay, we have to have some brown people in it, because otherwise we're going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
We
can't get away with it, guys.
We can't get away with it. We can't get away with it, which I think, like, you know, Hamilton has done that. If you look at like Bridgerton or any number of things, Six, any number of things, there are producers all over the country going, okay, what historical story are we going to tell with brown people in it?
Yeah.
Which, that's the sort of cynical side of it, but I think in terms of when then that now fits into what's happened in the last year, it's like, no, we really need to have these conversations about how we tell stories and be accountable to our own shit and what we are part of and what we contribute to without really admitting it and all of that. The conversations need to be had, which interestingly, I think, our show Hamilton has, again, we all find ourselves in the situation where we are having to sort of re-examine. So even though you could say that we have, or that the production has really shifted in and of itself is also subject to that kind of scrutiny, which I think is really right, because that's the way that things move forward. I think it has shifted. And we would always talk, like people in our company, we remain really good friends and we talk all the time, our cast, because it's like we're brothers and sisters, we say that. We speak all the time. And we did one show here where we managed to get the production to put on an extra show, which was for young people. We've been trying to do it for a long time. And we finally managed to get it done. So we had the theatre has 15,000 seats. 15,000? 1,500 seats. Imagine. 1,500 seats.
That might be, we'll save that for next year, I think, because we all want it to come back, but in a 15,000 capacity, but we'll talk later.
Hamilton could probably sell out a 15,000 seat arena. Anyway.
For a 9-month run every night.
Every night, yeah. I remember saying to Tommy, I was in New York and Tommy Cale's a director. And I remember saying to him, you could probably open another theatre on Broadway and have 2 shows running. Anyway, but people want to see the show. What was I saying?
Young people.
Young people. We did a young people show, and we made a list of schools that we had associations with, schools that we went to, or that we've taught at, and we got 1,500 young people in here who were every shade. And that was like amazing because, no matter what the piece is, if you're sitting in an auditorium and you're looking up on stage and you're seeing yourself physically or your story, your experience, that is life-changing. It just is. And it's not easy to say how, but it's about that person going away and seeing themselves differently, viewing themselves differently, viewing their possibilities differently, viewing what their aspirations and dreams are in a slightly different way. Maybe I can do that. I know what that's like. I remember going to see Hamilton on Broadway when I auditioned, and I'd been listening to the show for 2 weeks in preparation for this audition. So I've been listening to it round the clock, trying to learn Room Where It Happens for this audition.
Oh, the density of one of the most dense songs in musical theatre history.
Yeah. But the thing is, the interesting thing about that is that was my fault, because what they do in the audition is that they give you bits of the songs, So you don't have to do the whole thing. They don't want 1 million people coming in and doing. But I was like, no, I want to learn all of Room Where It Happened. I want to go in and do all of Room Where It Happened for them, which is like 5 minutes long. But I was like, I hate auditions. I was like, I want to just show them it. Because they might go, okay, that room was great. Now, a bit more of it, or sing more of it. I was like, no, I want to just show them the whole thing so that they've seen it and then they can tell me, thank you, but no thanks. So I gave myself a really hard time with that. But I'd been listening to it a lot. And then when I saw it on Broadway, I was moved just to hear it. But what I was really moved by, I remember coming out at the interval and standing there going, I'm seeing myself. I'm seeing myself, and I knew that, but I wasn't really prepared for it in that same way. And it sounds simple, but the power that theatre has to do that, I think, is really. And you then don't go, I'm seeing myself, and therefore I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. There's something much simpler than that, of just being able to see yourself on stage is a huge thing. And so when we came to do the show, I was aware of that, and I wanted to, honour the responsibility of giving that to other young people that we don't know what they're going to go and do. We don't know what they might be in theatre, they might be not. Whatever it is they want to do, they might want to be an athlete, they might want to be a mountain climber. But go away and know that all things are possible.
Yes.
So it was that again was I'd much rather focus on that than you know the more glamorous the more glamorous side of it, because you can't control that. Do you know what I mean? No. You must have met crazy people doing what you do and going and doing gigs and this being flown to this place and da-da-da. And you can't really control that. What you control is right. This is the tune I'm going to do next. Yeah. This is the mix I'm going to do next, or this is the vibe in the room, and therefore we're going to have to go this way. You can control that, right? You found that, or is that?
Oh no, 100%, 100%. And that's for me what I love about the book. To almost bring it back to the book again, because what you have done with this book is that you've shown people behind that curtain of how many times or what the process is before you step out on that stage. You know, for me, before I do that interview with that person, be it yourself, be it Beyonce, I need to make sure that I know what I want to discuss, because it's a conversation.
Right.
Before I'm out on that stage and I'm DJing for that person, or in this venue, I need to make sure that I know what the equipment is, how it works, the records that I might potentially want to play. I want to prepare, I want to do all of that. But what I love about this book is that you're talking about what you do as a performer. But what you did is you trained like an athlete for your performance. And I know a lot of performers that do that, but I don't know many performers that are able to articulate it in the way that you have done in the book.
Yeah. Well, that's that. I'm glad. I'm really, really glad, because that's exactly what it felt like. You have to. I've done enough shows and I've done enough theatre. Again, like, you know, that's as much like Shakespeare as well. You go on to do a Shakespeare play. You're out there for 3 hours, and you have to know where you start and where you're going, where the climaxes are, where you can be efficient with your energy and all. You have to know the map of it all. And that, well, I was like, well, that's what this is going to be like, totally. So I'm glad that comes across, and it's also something I'm passionate about. There was a book by Norman Mailer, the American writer Norman Mailer, and about the Rumble in the Jungle, about Ali's fight with Foreman in '74, right? So he goes out, and I think he's probably writing for Rolling Stone or Playboy or whatever. So he goes out and he's supposed to do this piece, and then do you remember like a few days before the fight, Foreman gets cut, so the thing has to be postponed for like 4 weeks. So Mailer's out there for the whole time. He's out there for a month, and ends up writing about this whole thing leading towards this world championship fight. And for me, I was like, and that's one of my favorite books. It's brilliant. It's quite a small book, but it kind of charts this building like energy and anticipation towards this event. And I was like, actually, that's exactly what theatre's like. It's not like a book about a historical event where it's a battle that happens on one day or some disaster that happens. It's kind of like this build-up, and that's the closest thing to what I can imagine, what I feel theatre is. You start here at day one of rehearsals, and you've got 4 weeks to get through that, and then it gets even more intense when you go into the theatre, and it gets even more intense when the audience get there, and it all builds to. It's not one day, it's like a month. It's 2 months. And it gets
or in
more.
your case, from when you audition to when you could actually go for it, over a year.
Over a year. And it builds in intensity. So you have to train for that. You have to train for that. And like our team, the Americans, when they came over, they said, you have to train for this. You've got to be on it from day one, like an athlete. So yeah, I think it's very much like that. And I'm glad that comes across. You know, I think that's important.
Hello. I'll keep this quick. My favorite sort of memory is every day or every time we went to do the show on stage right, there were a bunch of us there waiting to go on, and we would all huddle up and circle and say a prayer before the show. Usually led by Rachel John or Shin. And we would all take turns in saying something before each show. And I just think that was really lovely and wonderful. And it was just the best way to sort of start the marathon that the show is, as a unit, as a team. And so I love that. And I will always remember that. Among all of a set of different things that happened. But yeah, that would be my favorite memory.
What's up? Leslie Garcia Bowman here. OG Hamilton London, Charles Lee, William P. Van Ness, chair mover number 3, quill taker number 7, table mover number 33. Coming to you live from Chichester Festival Theatre. One of my favorite memories of our first year at Hamilton was we're singing History Has Its Eyes on You. I'm stood next to Giles on my left side, and a fly interrupted our performance, and it started buzzing around Obi and Jamael as they were singing this important piece of the show, and it started doing a figure 8 around their heads to the point where it was too funny. We all had to laugh. Everybody laughed. Obi, Jam laughed. The audience laughed, and there was no saving it. It was just a corpse moment from the entire company, and it was incredibly funny. And shout out to the fly, undefeated. Hope everyone's well. Enjoy the book release. The book is amazing. Buy the book and enjoy reading it. Big shout out to brother Giles Terera.
Well, we are here at the Victoria Palace Theatre. We are here at the
Yes.
home of Hamilton, and we are talking about your book, Hamilton and Me, but you've mentioned a few times about the family, the company,
Yeah,
the cast.
yeah.
And you've
Oh,
got a little
yes.
treat, haven't you?
Yes.
Because we've got a couple of very special
We Well, I was like, okay, I could come up here and just talk about this the whole time. But the thing about our company was it was a company. From day one, it was like we were in this together. And having been on the sort of train track for a year before getting into the rehearsal room, you're on your own. Then when you know you got the part, you can't talk about it. So you're very, very on your own with this thing. And then you get into rehearsals and you go, oh no, I'm not on my own. You've been through exactly the same thing, and you've been shitting yourself, and you've been scared, and you've been, and so we kind of bonded immediately. And I could not have done it without, I mean, where we started off in terms of like the revolve and being aware of each other, it is absolute. I mean, in a way it seems apparent, I guess, and people always talk about that, but just having a group of people who get where you are and what I was really always amazed by was, what you've spoken about the research that I do and my preparation for it. When I look at the members of our company who are primarily dancers, I'm like, it's the same shit. If I listen to Rachel John, who's like, who played Angelica and she can sing, I'm like, that's a voice. That's a thing. That's a talent that you've honed and that you honor. And the whole stage was full of people like that. So it's like, and the creative team were like that. And the people working front of house, back of house, the whole team was like that. Of like, okay, we're here to do the best that we can do. And when you're surrounded by people like that, it kind of elevates you. So I was like, that's a very important thing to have. So I wanted to try and drag them along to so that we could talk, because we have our most fun when we're together. I mean, people, it's a group of people who work really hard, but it's also one of the funniest group of people I've ever been with, and that makes a difference, right?
Yeah.
It makes a difference. It's very intense character and journey and stuff. And the joy that we had was really, really, I tried to get that as much as I can in the book, that sense of joy that we had. So I wanted to kind of
bring this. So where they at?
Where they at? I mean, you've got to do the. I did the introduction for you, so you've got to do the introduction.
Have I got to do the intro?
Yeah. It's your
Okay,
come on.
okay. So I'm gonna. I don't even know if you're ready for this because once we.
That's why I made sure that I asked the questions that I wanted to ask before I said let's bring them in.
Once we get going, it could be crazy. Okay, I'm looking for my sister, Rachel John. Rachel, come on over here. Is that Rachel?
That's Rachel.
That's Rachel John. Rachel and I. Well, we hadn't.
I'm hearing a laugh already.
Yeah. Here she comes. We hadn't known we'd never worked with each other before.
Greetings.
Come on in here,
Let me
Rachel.
see my designated swap.
Rachel John. Rachel John.
Behave myself.
Rachel John played Angelica in this show, and Olivier nominated performers in it. And when I tell you, every night when she sang that song, Satisfied, I'd have to leave the stage there and run round to get ready to come on and wait for it. So I'd have a swig of water in there, and as I did that, she'd be finishing the song, and the sound from this auditorium as she finished that song was one of my highlights of the whole experience. And I was like, yes. So
I mean, she's not good.
Rachel John.
She's good.
Good.
I tried.
No, you don't.
No, thank you for having me. This is very surreal. We were saying that before we even turned any of the cameras on. Like, to sit here in silence and just look at it, which you guys are not allowed to look at, but us looking at it and just taking it all in the silence it's very spiritual. Like, yeah, it's like coming back to primary school. It's like a small reunion.
Where you started.
Yeah. It's where you started, and so.
And every reunion has to have like the class clown, and that brings me.
And again, this is why you're doing the introductions, because I can't say that.
You've got to come in quick because don't let him have it. Do not let him have it.
That's the truth, you know what I mean?
The
You know what I
man
mean?
needs.
Let him know.
Real recognise real. Clowns recognise clowns.
Zero introduction.
True say in the book it says I got massive feet, you know, that's there you go. That's clown stance, behaviour and body type.
Yeah, but is that not the truth?
Oh, well creamed, well creamed.
Is that not the truth?
It is the truth.
Dan Westman. How you
Hello.
doing, brother.
Hey bro.
The Alexander Hamilton to the
In it.
And we haven't been in this auditorium since the last show we did. I don't think.
Wow.
No, yeah, absolutely.
Wow. How does it feel? How does it feel? I mean, you mentioned it feels slightly spiritual. How does it feel being here, knowing specifically why we're here for Giles's book?
Yeah, man, feels right, and it was one of those things where I remember in those rehearsals, and you know, I was endlessly curious of everyone in the company, but definitely a huge curiosity about Giles, because it's the guy you're playing opposite, it's the guy that the character that you develop such a strong bond with, and obviously it comes out of conflict, but it also comes out of an affinity and understanding. So the idea, you know, when I discovered, and I saw Giles, you know, writing things down or taking pictures, and there was a thing of like capturing those moments that centered myself in the sense of, yeah, this is special, and that is reflected again in being here right now, and yeah, I turn to Giles in so many moments, look to him for just guidance, a sense of centering, a bit of love, happiness, joy, bantering. Let's fuck him up.
That's what I was waiting for you to get to.
Yeah.
I don't remember the advice, but I remember the like trying to
The bants. Just someone to prod, someone who understood.
But this is what job was this for you? You had just come from RADA.
Must have been, third theatre job.
That's
Yeah,
that's a lot.
Wow.
So in that, yeah.
And you handled that.
Bro, well,
And
that was
are handling it.
I had the family to turn to. That's what it felt like. I had people
And
to
it
turn
Right.
keeps coming back to that about the family, doesn't it? And it feels like a
Always.
cliche, but like legitimately hand on heart, we're saying, even to today, I think the things that we walked through, it is a family. With being dysfunctional, and being happy, and fighting, and breaking bread together, and making up, and you know, walking around Victoria and clearing your head for a minute,
Helping each other.
Yeah, and helping each other, and all of that is the thing that you know, means you can come through those doors with the baggage and share with the village, and then go out and serve. I think it's that. I think because everything we do is about service. That's what we do. We're serving the character. We're serving one another. But the only way you can do that, I feel like, especially with the show, is leaning on one another, because it's a whole tapestry. So some pieces you come out and you go, right, I did my thing and then I disappear somewhere. But there's a lot of things like, wait for it. Really special moments of saying, okay, it's like a baton thing. Like, I always felt like that's what we were doing in this show. The wings are not massive. So, you know, Brother Giles would be like, guys, you need to keep this down, because again, and it's true. And like when we got the buffing, when we got the buffing, we took it, because what we understood was buffing means getting told off. But we took that because.
And then he was gone.
And then he was
like,
gone, innit?
bantering
Like
again.
that.
He's gone.
Bye. He's like that.
There was something that I captured most. It was like, as you say, there was so many different perspectives, but it was like there was a universality to it in terms of what you said. Like, one that definitely stuck with me was waking up in the morning and going, how are we doing this morning? And
Can you give me 2 shares or?
you'd be lucky.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned that. I've got to talk about the Bonham Carter tea.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
the tea. Hey.
What was the
Fortifying tea. I
wanna
can't
know,
tell you
man.
what it was, but it did the
There
job.
was no list of ingredients, was there? Like, what was in the tea?
No, it was a bag, and it was like strips of tree bark.
Hey.
Like that.
Yeah, truly.
Dried tree bark.
Yeah.
Is what it looked like.
Right.
And it was in. She came in tech.
Yes.
So we're talking about
I
Helena
remember
Bonham Carter.
Helena
Yeah.
Bonham Carter.
Don't give away too much because it's in the book, but just
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
But she gave us this very helpful tea, which is great for the immune system.
Was.
And so.
Which won you the Olivier? That's what you should be saying.
It did. Did
all
nothing
it
for
takes.
me, but like.
Yeah, no, you had the tea as well. He had the tea as well, so.
I didn't drink it. That's my thing. I didn't drink it. That was my problem. I
Maybe
actually.
it's how long you let it steep.
drink the
You let it steep long enough. That's what it
You know, I was
was.
holding down the lemon and ginger too much.
I can't.
You know, I just.
You have to let it steep longer at a certain temperature. Like, that's what it was.
That's what it
I
was.
feel like that's what
Yeah,
happened.
I didn't have time for that. I was dip it in and out. Tastes like water.
What is this? I
Not
can't.
working.
But it was though, like, you're talking about like being an athlete, you have to just maintain, take care,
Big time.
try and stay in shape and try and do what you can and try and be good to yourself. It's hard.
Yeah, it was actually reassuring reading that you woke up with that. And to be fair, we all kind of shared the experience of it, but reading it again and going, yeah, that was it, that was that place. And it's even now, despite it having been, over 2-3 years ago now, it feels good to go, oh yeah, we were all in that. We were all facing that and journeying through that with the ups and the downs, and we all had each other's backs in every single moment. It's not a moment that you captured in there, but a moment I remember doing the sing through, and I meant to go, just you wait. My voice was not there that morning. And it was just you. Okay, nothing there today. But the hand on the shoulder, and it was just a reassuring thing, we're sitting together, it's okay, we're gonna ride this out. So, those moments, I was reminded of those moments in that. And even now, I can hear the audiences, the buzz of the audience in this space. I can hear us and the heartbeats going in that. And the silence in relation to that is really lovely. And I know what you mean in terms of going back to primary school.
Yeah.
And I can hear the kids playing in the playground. I can hear the movement and the clatter of things in the lunchroom. And it's a similar thing. These are places that we found ourselves and celebrated ourselves. And that's what that book, the book's a big celebration. I remember reading like little bits about different people in the company, where we come from and how we arrived here. And as you say, like so many hands and people offering and supporting our journey. We're all kind of,
Were you aware of how much Giles was observing during that process, or were you all so deep in your own process?
No, I was 100%. But I think because I'm a little bit of a class clown, so I'm always like, who needs to be included in this jokes? What's going on? No, and I'm a little bit like, I'm a seeker out of like, are you all right? Are you all right? Do you want some jokes? Like, what's happening? And I just remember this book and him being in a corner. But I also respected the fact that just because hilarity is my process, it's not everyone's process. Because I'm like an extrovert, and that's how I release the tension.
Also, I'd go in in the morning.
I'm so frightened.
And Rachel would have like I just remember your like t-shirts. You would have you go to rehearsals and you're thinking,
Yeah.
Rachel had these amazing t-shirts.
Yeah, I've got a ton of t-shirts,
Hilarity
yeah.
is one thing, but you'd also
Yeah.
have a t-shirt saying, you know, he's
Blessed.
got you.
Yeah, or he's got you. Because I had to have this thing, like, I got it actually from a PT, and he was like, you know, dress like for the occasion. So you need to look in the mirror, and whatever that is coming back at you. And I remember Giles saying, like, there was one day I came in and I knew, I was like, I need the whole cross and the saints and all the prophets and everyone, because we have run this thing and I still don't understand. But it's only funny now because we had a Dropbox. So we had a Dropbox of like rehearsals, because obviously they were videoing in the room every time we did. Did you never access the Dropbox?
No, but I knew it was happening.
So there was a
Should've.
Dropbox. So yeah. Did you not access the Dropbox?
Okay.
Guys, what was going on?
So I could have seen myself
news
do
for
work.
Jam too.
Yeah.
That's
So-
big news.
There was a Dropbox, right? So I was like straight away like, guys, what is going on? So stage management was like, and Kate was like, there's a Dropbox. So every time we do a rehearsal, you finish the day, it will be uploaded within a few hours. So you could look back. You could be like, okay, so we ran that bit. Where were you two? And why was you lot not in the Dropbox?
Okay, Giles and Jam right now are just
Yeah.
looking
Why?
really upset.
I don't know if I'd have liked to see
Someone
that.
asked Katie, because I'm not
That
making
is
this up.
the thing also in play. I don't know if I would have watched it had I known,
true.
but I just don't know. If
Maybe you were told, but you just disregarded that.
Yeah.
message.
No, but it was
maybe,
definitely
maybe,
there.
Yeah, I was like, I don't want to see myself right
And
now.
it is very cool now to kind of look back at, you know, what Wait For It was like, what the opening number is like when we don't have levels, which is why I enjoyed the book, because it was like, we're going back, reminiscing, but I think for people outside that sometimes just purchase a ticket and sit here, I think it'll be a really special journey of going, so like they sample the cake, but you're like saying, this is what happens when I put the apron on, I preheated the oven, someone bought sugar, someone bought flour, do you know what I mean? Like that's how I felt about the book. So for us, like we were in the kitchen, but people are outside going, is that how we got cooked? And it's a really lovely journey, like in your mind as well. Because obviously we know you, but to be inside someone's mind, I'm like, wow, was that his whole process? And we got to like receive what Wait For It is. But I think it's so important for people to know what it takes from your soul and your spirit and your mind and your heart to keep producing that and never to be sort of satisfied. I've just dropped it in, haven't I? To be satisfied
You may know me from
with
such
that
songs.
level. You may know me from such songs, satisfied.
God.
Because it came out of my mouth and I was like, oh no, that's going to sound like that. But really just saying, I'm not just going to stay at this point. Like I still want to ask questions and inquire and, you know, because I'm a fan of shows and I'm a fan of other performers and I always want to know, like, how did you get there? Because it's not just turning up and switching the voice on.
The moment was in Dear Theodosia.
Oh my God.
I think Dear Theodosia comes towards the end of the first act, right?
Yeah.
And so you come out, boom, 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 my shot, boom, 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 like all this big stuff.
Yorktown.
Yorktown.
Boom, boom, boom.
Ba-da-ba-da-ba-bam.
Everything, wait for it. And then
Tanks and everything.
they just come out and sit on two chairs at the front of the stage and have to sing this very delicate song.
And now a lullaby.
And then a lullaby with just the piano. Ding, 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 ding,
Yeah,
ding.
yeah, yeah. You know,
Yeah.
literally come out
And-
of Call of Duty and then you're playing Sims.
Wow.
And I could always tell where I was like vocally on that song. And I could always tell where he was vocally on that song. And there was this one
So can everyone
moment
else.
there was a moment where you like go, Jam's having a tough day, or
So
I'm
day to
definitely
day.
having a tough day, or we're both having a tough day. Usually we will sort of alternate.
Right.
Alternate. So if there was a little bit in the middle where it's like, okay, well, Jam's gonna
Cover this.
Jam's gonna cover that while I just
Just like, I
and then
got
vice
you,
versa.
bro.
But it was all that, you know, you're working together. Although that said, sometimes talking about noise in the wings, there'd be sometimes I'd come out and start that song, and I'm singing through it and just hear bung, 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 bung in the wings. Chair, you're supposed to bring your chair here.
Wow.
And the chair hits
We're going to
a light
resolve
or
this
something.
now, everyone. We're going to
In
resolve
the
this
middle of a
right
quiet
now.
song.
That did
And that
happen,
happened like a
yes.
couple of times where I was like, in
A
the end I was
couple
like,
out of,
that's
let's say, 365 days of the year.
First time I was like, oh, someone's hurt themselves. And then the second time I was like, it's Jam again.
Well, you know, I was still
That's the whole
catching my
sentence.
breath.
Into the thing, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, you know.
they didn't make those, you know, they
No,
didn't
it wasn't wide
accommodate
enough.
for torso as well as chair.
Yeah.
Ding,
it?
ding. Yeah,
Yeah.
It was quite cute, isn't it? It's like, oh, don't wake up the baby.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm looking back like,
Yeah.
Oh man,
that was a character choice, is what I'm.
that was.
I mean, actually, that you guys talking right now, there's a quote from the book that I want to share with you guys. Joy is the fuel of a theatre company's work. And just sitting here with you guys just for a couple of moments, I feel the joy that you must have gone through.
Yeah.
Literally since day one.
But it's like
Yeah, it was.
the joy is the reward after the pain too, and it's like it's not. I think you only, like my mum always says, it's like, you know, you get good wine out of pressing grapes, and it's under the pressure of it that great things are released.
I think you can do something like this if you got the wrong temperament for it. It's mad. Like Stephanie Clemens, who was our assistant associate choreographer.
Yeah.
She said, you know, we spent the first 2 weeks learning music, just the score, and then we went upstairs to the big room in Gerber Space with the whole set and the Revolve and everything in it. And then we had to now put it up on its feet. And she said, you know, you will cry and you will break down and you will want to run out of the building, and then it'll be okay, and then you probably will want to cry again a week later and stuff. But in order to be, you've got to be a specific kind of personality to be able to embrace that and it not be like, I need to get out of here because it's just too much. So I think, you know, it's people who are like, yeah, let's go. And we all dealt with our shit in different ways, but you have to be, it starts from who you are as a person, I think. Don't you reckon?
Yeah, and I think there was, as you say, there was a lot of joy, and I think joy was the first feeling that we had from being in that room, and I just don't think that left. It was safe. I just felt safe. I felt there was a sense of we could be ourselves, and I think, as you say, like, Tommy definitely encouraged that. It's just like, you are you, always the time. It's, you know, we're making a play, which you make reference to as well. So the idea is that we're playing at all times. That's how people learn, that's how people discover. I think there's an element where we can sometimes feel like to learn or to work means the denial of joy, or it means a loss of, I guess, humanity, and you become a bit more mechanized. But from the very earliest stages of our lives, and as should be encouraged for the rest of our lives, play is where you learn. You learn as you play, you learn as you enjoy yourself. You know.
And everyone gets their moment to do their thing that they're really good at. Dance-wise, vocally, everyone gets their bit. So you spend the whole show watching people just nail it. Like amazing talent. So I remember watching Yorktown, and I was in that wing, stage right wing, when that happens, when they do that dance break. And every night I'd watch and I'd be like, fucking do it. And they'd be like, bang, bang, looking like superheroes. And the joy of just watching people who are amazingly talented, you've got this amazing talent, do it, was like, to me, that's joy as well, of going like, wow. It's not just like watching someone execute something, it's watching someone you know, watching someone you love, you care about, doing their thing. I loved that.
Celebration, isn't it?
Yeah.
Celebration, I feel that's...
You're hyping up your family.
All we're doing is celebrating each other, celebrating that we're here, celebrating that we're here because of who we are, and celebrating like all those things. And that's, you know, reflected in the book as well, but it's just like, it's just a celebration. And as you say, in those moments, we're just celebrating each other, and just like, you know, the feeling of, I'm gonna say it, look at where we are. Look at where we started.
I know we did.
Where we are, we're in the room where it happened.
You can't walk through life without it happening, guys. Just lean into it. It is what it is.
I mean, you don't understand how many times I've had to rephrase questions in my head.
I'm telling you.
To not do that.
Because you feel like every word, because of Lynn's genius, you feel like every word, words didn't exist before Hamilton. Like, it's like Hamilton first, and then all your dialogue, you have to like change the
language.
That's what that was it.
Yeah.
But it does feel like, you know, coming to the book and coming to actually see the show and seeing you guys interact with each other now, it feels like you were all trying to help elevate each other rather than it being I'm going to do this and come follow me. It was almost like, okay, hand on shoulder moments. Let's go and take this journey together as the company.
Yeah, man.
And it was set up like that too. You know what I mean? Like, I think the space was already laid out that we could have this. So there were moments when, you know, Giles was like, call us into a circle, like when we got here, and just be like, guys, we're all looking at each other and this is the last time we're gonna like look at each other and take each other in before we do the thing, because everything else is gonna run away with us, our schedules, you know, not spending time with our families, like all of that is gonna run away. But this moment right here, this is what we have to keep. And I think those are the moments, obviously, that people don't hear about or don't get to see. They just get to see the finished product. But it was always about that, like, keep checking in with each other, you know, making sure that everyone's looked after, because ultimately we're bringing ourselves to the piece, and we want to make sure that everyone is okay. So then when we do have cook-offs and we, you know, everyone cooks. And
Right, okay, I need to hear about this cook-off, please. Like, is that the kind of things that were happening backstage?
Yeah. We'd have them fairly regularly.
Yeah,
Something
yeah,
would be
yeah.
happening.
Yeah.
Between shows, potluck, everyone brings something in.
Yeah.
Between shows, you just go down. You know, it's like when we did 125th Street. Between shows, go down, get it all out, you know, eat. And then try and
back into
try and get in a costume for that second show.
Try and make it back to your dressing room.
Yeah, just like that.
To put on a costume.
But from all over the world as well, because, you know, we throw around the world diversity a lot, but like this cast was from everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, some of us were first generation, some of us were like not even first, they were born there and came here. Like, you know what I mean? We represented so much. You know, the fellowship was good.
Fellowship.
And
But I'm thinking about what you said about fellowship, because if you look right, this stage is a bare stage.
Yeah.
You have two steps going up, and you have planks of wood, and you have ropes. So there's no big set pieces coming on and stuff. It's only the actors. It's only the people standing on stage and looking in each other's eyes. That's how you tell the story. Yeah. I remember Andy Blankenbuehler, the choreographer, talking. I wasn't in it, but I was watching it, and I can't remember what we were. I think it was Quiet Uptown, maybe. But I remember him. No, it wasn't. It was Yorktown, Battle of Yorktown, and I remember him saying, like, the audience have to see in your eyes, like if you're a soldier and you're out in the battlefield and that bullet is coming towards you, someone has fired and it's coming towards you, the only thing that we have is how we see it in your eyes. And I think that's the case with all of it, with all the characters' interactions and stuff. It's only about what goes on here, so it's about what you bring to it, is it right?
Yeah, absolutely.
100%, and that translates in so many different things. Because we were just talking about, in terms of this bare space, and then what makes this space is the people that are in it, like including the audience. And that's like, it was almost something that we even had over the kind of pandemic as well, in a sense of, wow, you know, when you come through empty spaces, you were in Soho, like when Soho's quiet, or just down these streets that you're so familiar with, and even being in this space, and what it's like when it's quiet, and you're like, wow, this space becomes the space, this society, this area becomes this area when it's got people in it.
Right.
That's when it comes alive, and that's when I feel most alive, and it's what people contribute with their bodies being in the space and their commitment to whatever it is in that moment, in this theatre, out in the streets, whatever it is. And that's the same with the potluck as well. People bring in them, this is my contribution to the thing, and that's why it's like a celebration of, you're bringing your thing, okay, I'm gonna eat that and I'm gonna enjoy it and we're gonna celebrate that. Same with this as well, and yeah, man, there was a lot of that, and just reading the journal as well that's like a perfect reflection after all that's transpired over this past year, to think about what it was like before and how we can do, what we can do like moving forwards in terms of cherishing every moment and saying, I mean, this, it's over there now, as was life before the pandemic is over there. So it's like, well, let's celebrate this now. It's a different time, but we're still here and we can celebrate that. And I feel like that was also captured in there as well, in terms of those heights. And there's a lovely line that you have in there as well.
He's always writing a lovely line, isn't he?
Yeah.
Listen,
you
moves your heart. Yeah, your heart.
But I've got to say,
very talented guy.
but I've got to say, you mentioned like whether they knew that I was writing, but you would write as well. You had a book.
Yeah.
You writing all the time, like lyrics or bars or whatever. You were always writing, taking notes down, stuff.
Yeah, it's continually inspired, and just inspired by what we were doing, and who we were with, and loads of thoughts came out of there.
I want to leave you guys, or kind of for the final, because I think, we could literally sit here all night.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we could
sit here all night.
This is what
We've been
happens when we get on
17
Zoom.
hours already.
We get on Zoom and it's a mess.
Yeah, this is what it's like on Zoom.
Yeah.
The quote from the book. The miraculous only happens with repetition, work, and patience. Who did the most amount of work? Who had the least amount of patience?
Oh, now
Oh.
that's a question.
Ooh, that's hard.
I would say we all did. We were required to do, and I'm not just saying that's not bullshit. We were required to do the same amount. I mean, it was an effort for all of us. We all had to work
Yes.
our asses off.
However,
I would say though.
however,
I would say.
Innit? Go on, say
on
what I'm
that,
gonna say. Go on, go.
I feel like I could be. I don't know.
No, say it.
I mean, first of all, everyone, as you say, did an extreme amount of work.
Yes,
There's
I
no
agree.
denying that
Yeah,
there
yeah,
was
yeah.
work done. However, there were people that did the next level of work, which was
Innit?
they had more people to cover than just one person, and they were chilling on the sides, and they were like watching and saying, "Okay, I've got to do that," and then they only had a
Yeah, true.
few hour
True.
after rehearsals to do the thing.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I guess in terms of the whole time of doing the show, if you're doing a show every day, then you're just working. The ensemble were working. It's different levels of work. It kind of shows in different ways because, you know, the work presents itself in different way. I don't think you can kind of say one size fits all in terms of work.
And I don't think it stops. It's not like you get the part and then you start doing it and 6 months in you're like, that's me. It never feels
Never
like
stops.
that.
The
Like
work never stops.
even that last, I remember that last matinee like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
And I remember coming out in between and I just thought, oh, she should have. Okay, I need to take this moment in a little. Even at that moment, I was like, I'm still working because there are things that I still want her to bloom. And there are things that haven't quite like unfold as yet. So I don't know.
Yeah, celebrate. It's honouring that human because humans as we are just multifaceted and constantly discovering things. So the Angelica of that time is constantly discovering new things about her. So, you know, we have a year and 2.5 hours every day to discover something else in a lifetime of experience that this character's had. So yeah, every day there was just more to find. And I noticed that with both of yourselves. I remember just playing across from you and there was something discovered and I was like, oh my God, that's different. How does that make me feel? How does that make Hamilton feel? What does that bring to this character? It was just endless in that respect. But I said what I said. What were you gonna say about who's doing the work? Who's putting in that?
No, I was literally, you were saying that and I was like, because I've had this life of being an alternate and a swing and all of those sorts of things. And the idea that you can't turn your brain off, that everybody had to say switched on because again, there are many elements and moving parts in this and you can get hurt if you're not exactly where you need to be. So
They had Bibles, man. They had Bibles.
It was one show, or there's 1 week where Safiso who covered Burr, but he also covered Hamilton. And he also covered Lafayette.
Lafayette,
And there's one week where we went on for all three of them.
all three parts.
Did it all.
There was many prayers that week. Right, that wing.
Many t-shirts.
Everyone was wearing one.
We like amped up that prayer circle in that wing, boy.
Yeah,
we was
yeah.
like,
At the time,
Hands
Burr
on
and
him,
Hamilton
like,
speak to each other the whole time.
Yes.
So he's got both that going on in his head.
Yeah.
And then, Lafayette, Jefferson, like all that.
But then you also said even like in terms of the work, like Steph, like just in terms of that rehearsal when we were doing all the choreography of all the people that she had to consider, all those bodies in the space, what line they were moving on, what they were doing, where were they, what thoughts were going on. So there was like a level of, that's what I mean. So the idea of work just, I think it's always the case. I know when I watch a show, I'm like, how did they do that? And I know a lot of people ask us that when they see the shows, like, how do you remember all those lines? And I feel the same way about everyone else in the space. I'm like, how did you do that number? Like, or how, what have you? There's always, unless you're the person doing it. And then it's always like, well, no matter what the work is, no matter, and this is what you're saying, this is that line that I really love about the higher the mountain, the sweeter the view. That is almost the same for someone, when you see someone climb that mountain, and you're like, wow, the view of seeing them on top of that mountain is it seems incredible. But then when you're that person, you're just like, we just did the thing. Right. And also who you're sharing that view with, I think was what made that work so much easier. So yeah, I'm sure when you're not in it, you're like, oh my God, that's a lot of work. But when you're in it, you're like, well, I guess it was a lot of work, but with the people I was with, it just made it feel like,
yeah.
you know, the moments we shared just made the journey, as you say, so much more enjoyable. You don't even look about how far you've gone or until we're here now.
Well, we're in now, we might as well jump off.
Well,
Are you ready?
Might as well go.
as you guys jump up, Giles,
Yes.
Hamilton and Me, an actor's journal.
Get it.
This is an amazing read. It's an amazing
It's
book.
beautiful
Rachel
read.
and Jam, Giles, thank you very much for your
Thank
time.
you, brother.
We're so grateful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Listen, thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
Listening in at all
I'm back.
times.